Hey, what's going on, everyone? It is Josh Guerrero here, and welcome to the All Around Adventure Podcast. Whether you're joining me for the first time or you've been listening to the podcast for a while now, I certainly do want to welcome you here. And as always, I want to thank you for being here today. I know you're busy. I know you got a lot going on. And I also know that there's a lot out there on the internet these days that's trying to get your attention and distract you. But it just means so much to me that you've chosen to download and listen to this podcast. Now, if you are in fact new to this podcast and you're not entirely sure what we're all about here, this is the show where you hear amazing tales from afar and get the all-important life lessons that go along with them. And those will, of course, be stories from myself, as well as the amazing guests that I welcome on this podcast. And in this episode, you have me today. This is a solo cast. I like to do these solo casts every other week, just to kind of give you all some ideas and insights from my recent travel experiences or other adventures that I might be having. And so this is the solo cast. Don't really have a fancy name for this. I used to in the past, but this is just simply now the solo show, I guess we'll say. And I typically don't like to keep these very long, maybe around 10, 15 minutes, just to give you all something to chew on really quick as you go about into your week, something to ponder on. I also don't have a script for this. I do have bullet points on a Word document open on my computer to just kind of look at to help guide me along. Some stuff that I want to cover in today's topic, which is going to be about money saving strategies for travel. Now, when it comes to getting out and exploring the world, one of the barriers that a lot of people will mention to me is money. And especially in today's inflated economy, money just kind of seems to be a fleeting resource for a lot of people right now. And of course, I'm no exception. I'm definitely feeling the hit as well as most people, but I'm really going to try to not let this deter me from getting out and having these amazing experiences that I want. I mean, after all, time is fleeting. I mean, I'm not getting any younger, so I definitely want to go out and see these things. So I'd say that this episode is going to be for me just as much as I'm sure it's going to be for many of you just as well. Now, the way that I broke this down is I have, two separate sets of strategies. I'm going to go over 3 ways on how to save money for travel. And then I'm going to discuss 3 ways to make your money go a little bit longer and a little bit further when you're actually doing your travels in and of itself. There's some things that have worked for me in the past, and there are definitely some things that I want to start incorporating into my life yet again as I prepare for some upcoming travels that I want to do this year. So let's go ahead and kick this off. So talking about money saving strategies for travel first. Now, the first thing, and this is more of a mindset than it is a practical thing, but it very much is a practical thing when, of course, you utilize this mindset out in the real world. And that is the idea of pay now or pay later. And this can go for many everyday things. Like if you're someone who likes to go out and buy lunch for every single day that you go out to work, rather than make lunch at home and take it in to work with you, then keep in mind that you could be spending money for lunch now, or you could use that same money, set it aside, and you can buy yourself lunch when you're actually out traveling. And it's the same thing for even all those smaller items too. If you get coffee every day, and me, I'm a little bit of an energy drink fiend at times. And I think to myself that $3-4 and perhaps even more than that for an energy drink or a cup of coffee, you could set aside that money, and then you can get your coffee while you're out traveling just as well. So think about that when it comes to these small, like day-to-day purchases that you usually make. And for many of you, and again, myself included, this could be a habitual thing where every day, going to work, you stop and get coffee, or you stop and get this or that or snacks, whatever the case may be. Keep that in mind. You could either get that stuff now or you can get that stuff later, because all these small little costs, they do rack up pretty quickly over time if you do the math. So keep this in mind. Pay now or pay later. The next thing I want to talk about is use money-saving apps. There's quite a few out there, but the only one I could really speak for, because it's one that I use personally, is the app Capital, and that's Capital with a Q at the front of the title, and I'll leave a link to that in the show notes for this episode. But I think this is a really great app. It has it connects to your bank account, and what it does is it'll set aside a certain amount of money based on what they call rules that you set for it. So maybe you want to set aside a certain amount of money every single week. They also have this like roundup feature where if you make a purchase and it'll round up to like the nearest dollar or the nearest $3 or the nearest $5, whatever the case may be, and set that money aside just as well too. I typically don't like to use that rule just because it just takes so many withdrawals out of my checking account, and my checking account statement just gets a little bit messy. So I usually would prefer just to have a certain set amount of money that I set aside each week, and it's all automated. So once you implement that rule, you don't really have to think about it. It just happens on its own. And then over time, you can check to see how much you set aside. And you can also set savings goals. Let's say if you want to set aside a certain amount of money for a trip that you have coming up, once you set that goal and then you put those saving rules in place, you can kind of see how long it might take to actually reach that goal. And so you can adjust your rules accordingly to try to make your money saving goal in a certain time frame. So it's a really good app. It's very flexible. There's a lot of nice features to it. So that's definitely one that I would recommend. I know there's other apps out there too. So take a look around, see if you find one that works for you. But if Capital is something that you want to give a try, like I said, I'll leave a link to it in the show notes for this episode. And the third thing that I want to talk about is trade things for experiences. Now, there's a lot of ways that people can sell things online these days. Facebook Marketplace, Amazon, eBay, all that sort of stuff. So maybe take a look around your home. See what kind of items that you have that maybe just aren't really adding a lot of value for you anymore, but maybe could be valuable to someone else out there. And see if you can maybe sell those things, get a little extra money, and take that money and set it aside in your travel savings fund. And I'm sure just by maybe looking around your house right now, a quick glance, you might be able to spot a couple of things. So, and of course, some things may be a little bit more sentimental that you may not want to part ways with. That's not necessarily what I'm talking about here. I'm kind of talking about those things that maybe you bought, because it was the shiny object at one point in time. It added maybe a week or two of joy into your life. And then quickly, if that joy sort of fizzled out and now it's kind of just clutter taking up your place. I'm sure you could probably think of a couple of things. So that's a third money saving strategy that I want to talk about, is see if you can trade any things that you may have to later be used for experiences down the road. And in this case, we're talking about travel. All right. So the next section of this episode that I want to talk about is how to make your money last a little bit longer when you're actually out doing your travels. Now, the first thing that I want to talk about is using what I call the KISS rule. And I didn't coin this term. I wish I had, because I do like it. And KISS is an acronym, and it means keep it simple, stupid. When I say stupid, as if like I'm calling, you stupid. Not that you're stupid, but you get what I'm saying. But really, it is just keeping things simple when you're traveling. Now, I see this a lot, I apply this mostly to my lodging accommodations wherever I go. I know some people really like to throw down for nice, big, fancy schmancy hotels, but that's not really my style. I don't travel to places to spend a lot of time in hotels. I travel to places to go out and explore and experience things. To me, a hotel is simply a place for me to sleep and secure my things, nothing more. And this is where a lot of people like to go and utilize hostels and things like that. I'm really not into the hostel thing anymore. I used to when I was in my 20s and was just kind of doing the backpacking, traveling style. But, now I prefer to have like my own room, my own space and everything like that. But even still, the hotels that I usually get are a little bit more simple. And same thing going out and about too, just keeping things a little bit simple as well. Maybe walking to more destinations than rather having to pay for a bunch of public transport options. Or, maybe you could just throw down a smaller amount to rent like a bicycle, or, a lot of places have those motorized scooters these days. And, you can maybe get around to the city that way. Again, with just having to pay with so many different fares for like taxis or Ubers or buses or trains or whatever the case may be. So just keep it simple. Keep it simple, and then you'll find that you'll make your money last a lot longer when you're out and about doing your travels. All right, and the next strategy that I want to talk about to make your money last a little bit longer is to consider traveling with someone else or traveling within a group. And this is just simply to divide up the cost of the trip. You can go half and half on accommodations. You can go half and half on transportation. You can go half and half on anything else. Maybe not necessarily airfare, but while you're on the ground doing your exploration, you can go half and half. Or maybe you can even get group deals if you decide to travel with a larger group. And if you book with a tour group, oftentimes you get a lot with one fixed price. Like if you do, let's say a bus tour somewhere, that obviously takes care of the logistics right away, and also for the guides and so on and so forth. So yeah, that's the second tip that I want to talk about to make your money last a little bit longer, is to travel with someone or to travel within a group. And now the third point that I want to talk about, which is kind of piggybacking off of the second point here, is to establish a global network. I've been very fortunate to make friends with people in so many different places around the world. So let's say if I want to go to Germany for a trip, or if I want to go to Switzerland for a trip, or back to England for a trip, I know people in all these countries that I'm sure would gladly welcome me to stay with them. And so therefore, I don't have to worry about accommodation costs at all if I travel to any one of those places. Now, with social media, that does make this I don't know if I'd say simpler necessarily. I don't really think social media can totally replace meeting people in person and establishing the connections with people in person, but it's a tool. Nonetheless, it's a tool to make connections with other people around the world. Now, of course, keep in mind this should go both ways, where if you're going to go travel abroad to see friends that you've made in other countries and they're welcoming you into their home and not charging you anything to house you, keep in mind to reciprocate that in return should they ever want to come to where you're at. And I've invited quite a few friends that I know from abroad to say, hey, if you ever want to come to the U.S. and you ever want to see Texas, let me know. I'll gladly act as your host. So this goes both ways just as well, too. So keep that in mind. All right, everyone, that's just what I want to talk about for today as far as saving money for your travels and to make your money last a little bit longer when you're actually traveling. So let's go ahead and recap these once again with the first section talking about money saving strategies for travel. Pay now or pay later. The second point is to use saving apps. And the example I used in this episode was Capital. And again, I'll put a link to that in the show notes for this episode. The third point that I wanted to talk about is to trade things for experiences. Look to see what you might have at home that you're willing to part ways with, that you might be able to get some money for if you put it on Facebook Marketplace or wherever else. And the next section was making your money last a little bit longer while you're actually traveling. The first one is the KISS rule, to keep it simple. And, don't feel like you have to drop on anything too fancy or anything like that to have a good experience while you're traveling. And the next point is to travel with someone else or within a group so you can split expenses. And piggybacking off of that point for the final point is to establish a global network so that way you won't have to pay for accommodations when you go to certain places. And also in return, the people that you know around the world won't have to pay anything should they decide to come pay you a visit. All right, everyone, that's all I have for today. I really hope you found this episode beneficial. If you did, let me know. Leave me a comment if you're watching the video on YouTube. Be sure to share this episode with your friends and family if you think they'll get some value from this as well. You can also connect with me over on social media. I'm most active on Instagram, and my handle over there is @allaroundadventure. I certainly love to connect with you all over there. So leave me some comments, drop me a message. I'd look forward to hearing from you. All right, everyone. Thanks so much for tuning in today. And I'll be back next Monday with a brand new episode featuring another fantastic guest. So be sure to check back in for that. All right. Thank you for tuning in, everyone. Have a wonderful day.